everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Fitness Education Series produced by the Australian Fitness Academy. It's like progressive overload for your brain. This episode, shout out to Lucy for sending this question through, so thanks for getting in touch. And we're going to talk about how to improve your vertical jump, which is a very cool topic. It's a potentially common one you might get as a personal trainer or coach out there. Obviously with some history in sort of athlete development, it's a common one for athletes potentially to improve performance. Vertical jump may assist that, but a lot of even general population or recreational athletes that you'll work within just general facilities and general gyms, improving vertical jump is a relatively common goal out there. If you look at the big ones, are sort of weight loss or muscle gain. After that, you've got a mix of different goals, but vertical jump is definitely one that gets thrown around there a lot. So it's a good one to sort of have a little bit of a think about. So if a client ever does sort of say, I want to improve my vertical jump, obviously you can sort of go back, have a look at it and think about what things we might look to put into our training program to improve vertical jump. So I think the first thing to think about is what vertical jump is, and vertical jump is a common fitness test as well for a lot of athletes or some different sports. And it's a measure of lower body power. So if we do a vertical jump test, for example, and then we retest it in 4, 8, 12 weeks, if we have increased our vertical jump, it generally shows an increase in our lower body power. So it can be a good way to test lower body power. But if we're looking to improve vertical jump, we're going to have to improve our lower body power, which is going to come from our legs, our leg muscles, our quads, our hamstrings, our glutes are all going to play a role, even our calf muscles, in vertical jump, how high we can jump. And there's lots of different programs out there. I'm sure if you Googled vertical jump, they'd probably spit out a whole lot of random programs that they say is going to improve your vertical jump. I think when we look at lower body power and we're looking at programming to improve lower body power or how we're going to actually jump higher, power is a combination of strength and speed. So if we look at, I guess, the mathematical formula for power, it's generally force times velocity. So force and velocity is power. So in terms of strength application or resistance training, we look at that as strength times speed. So if we want to increase our power, so our vertical jump or our lower body power, we need to either increase our strength or increase the speed at which we can use that strength, or how fast can we apply that force. So in reality, probably one of the limiting factor of your vertical jump is probably going to end up being your lower body strength. So lower body power is basically how fast we can apply the strength we have. If we don't have any strength, lower body strength, or we have a less strength, we don't have anything to apply. So there's no point me getting faster and faster if I'm actually not able to apply a good amount of force. So in terms of lower body training to improve vertical jump, it will be dependent on the client as well. So where are they at with their resistance training? So have they been training for a number of years and they've built up sort of a base of lower body strength? Or are they relatively new to the gym and they still haven't sort of developed that foundational strength that would really help them improve their vertical jump just without even any power training? So it's definitely situation dependent, I think, in terms of what a person should focus on if they want to improve their vertical jump. There's sort of very generalized sort of baseline strength measurements that are out there in the fitness industry in terms of your base level of strength before you would consider working on your power training or developing that explosive speed that it would take to improve your vertical jump potentially. And that's generally related to body weight. So they'll say things like you should be able to squat 1.5 times your body weight or deadlift twice your body weight. There's upper body ones too, like you should be able to bench press 1 times your body weight or 1.2 times your body weight for bench press. And these are basic strength standards that you can look to hit before you start sort of really working on that explosive nature or that power application. So, and they're generalized standard. Females could look to do 1 times body weight squat and a 1.5 times body weight deadlift to get that baseline strength before they start to really consider learn to apply that force explosively and quickly and work on that speed. Again, if someone's relatively new to the gym, they don't have those strength standards, your first idea would probably be to get them to those standards, and that's going to have the biggest impact on them being able to improve their vertical jump. So if someone needs to get their squat to, say, 140 kilos, but they can only squat 90 kilos, I'm not going to spend a lot of time giving them box jumps or plyometrics or different variations of sort of jumping movements and jumping exercises if they haven't got that strength standard. You're better off giving them time, putting them, you might do a couple of blocks of programming, you might put them on a hypertrophy block to start building some muscle and then sort of flow into a strength block to build some strength over a period of weeks and months. And then once they start hitting that closer to that 140 kilo squat, then you can start to build a little bit more box jumps and power orientated movements into their program to help them practice that explosiveness. But we want to make sure that our client has that initial baseline of strength before they start putting more time into the explosive exercises. If they haven't developed their strength and they just focus a lot on box jumps, they'll probably improve their vertical jump potentially if they've never trained before. They'll get improvements in sort of their neuromuscular function and the ability to they contract muscle fibers and fire off their motor units and activate their muscles, so they will be able to apply more force based on the neuromuscular pathways sort of improving and the improvements in muscle activation. But they'll hit a sort of plateau fairly quickly based on their strength level being a little bit lower. And if you can't apply a good amount of force just based on strength levels, it doesn't matter how quick you apply it, you're not going to improve that vertical jump. So I think initially, strength levels are important in terms of improving vertical jump. And even if someone does zero sort of power-based exercises like box jumps as an example, and they solely focus on improving their lower body strength, after 4 weeks, if they've done no power exercises but they've improved their leg strength, you'll probably find their vertical jump has improved as well, just based off the fact that they've got more lower body strength. So definitely lower body strength is probably the foundation to start with, and then you can sort of start putting in some more fancier exercises, I guess, like box jumps or broad jumps or drop jumps, seated box jumps, all different. There's a lot of different variations. People use sort of banded jumps as well, and there's a lot of different stuff out there. You can look at improving sort of elasticity in power training, but that's probably makes the 5 to 2% difference. Most of it is going to come from developing lower body strength and then explosiveness through your practicing your vertical jump or your box jumps. When it gets to applying that, say you have a client, and again, if a client comes in, that's their goal, but they have no strength, you'd probably, even though you might know that strength training is where they're going to get the most bang for their buck, it's probably good to still put some box jumps or some sort of little hops or pogo jumps into their plan to start with and start to build it in. One, to get them used to it. So when you sort of do implement more complex variations, they've sort of got the coordination and they're used to those movements. But also because that's probably what they think is going to help them work, and they might see that as interesting, and it's probably what they see on Instagram and Facebook and things that they think they should be doing to improve power. So mixing that in there a bit can help keep your clients happy, and it's also good fun too, so it helps keep the program enjoyable. But it's important that you also have that focus on developing the lower body strength to improve the power, not just putting box jumps in and then doing a normal program and thinking the box jumps are going to really help with that vertical jump. When it comes to, I guess, using things like box jumps or drop jumps as tools to improve vertical jump or lower body power, I think the one place I see people sort of implemented incorrectly is not allowing enough rest between sets. So when we're looking to maximize power, we need to have basically as little fatigue as possible in the system. Um, it's all about explosive muscle contractions and our body sort of working as explosive as possible. As soon as we have fatigue in the system, we start to slow down. So even if you go and do sort of 5 to 6 to 7 box jumps, that 6th, 7th, 8th box jumps are going to start getting lower and lower very quickly. So as soon as we start to fatigue, we're not actually training the motor units that are sort of responsible for that really big vertical jump. We want to be sort of targeting those fast twitch motor units and fast twitch muscle fibers that are going to help us be explosive. As soon as we fatigue, we're not training them. So if you go and you do 10 to 15 box jumps in a row, have 30 seconds rest, and do 10 to 15 box jumps in a row, you end up not training muscular power and you're more training muscular endurance in probably a fairly poor way, because there's an increased risk of injury with sort of those doing box jumps or high impact movements repetitively over a period of time. We're under fatigue. So I think if you are sort of implementing these explosive type exercises like box jumps or broad jumps or things like that for power training and improving your vertical jump, you've got to make sure you take a lot of rest. So it might be you do 3 to 6 reps, probably 6 is close to the max. You might rest 30 seconds between reps, but then you'll rest 2 minutes minimum between sets, if not 3. So you should feel basically as fresh as you did at the start at the end. So you shouldn't really accumulate too much fatigue through that initial, if you're putting box jumps and stuff in at the start of your session where no fatigue. So any sort of power training needs to be done first after your warm up. But if you are doing that, it shouldn't be too extensive, because if we are building in fatigue, we're not getting the stimulus we're after. And you want to make sure you're resting between sets. So it can be it's a good one to think about how you actually get that into the session without having the client just sitting there for 2 to 3 minutes not doing much between sets. Because if we have them doing lots, it's not going to really train what we want it to train. But the client also might not feel like they're getting the most out of their session, or their session time frame will take a fair bit longer with power training because of the rest period required. So trying to fit these few sets in of box jumps or broad jumps or explosive low body exercises can take a little bit of playing around. Sometimes joining it, doing a bit of contrast training, so you do your heavy squats and then do some box jumps in between your sets can be good. You might just do a couple of sort of plyometric sets sort of at the end of your warm-up, but still incorporating some upper body mobility or things as you go, so you can sort of keep busy in between the rest periods without accumulating a lot of fatigue and letting that fatigue dissipate, so you're fresh for your next set. But it can take a bit of getting used to, is having lots and lots of rest. So with power training, it's all about quality over quantity. So you don't want to be doing box jump after box jump after box jump until you sort of, as your box jump gets lower and you get for the fatigue, you're not really training for that power at all. So that's probably another important aspect of applying low body power exercises or any sort of power exercises to a program to become more explosive, is those rest periods and making sure you land for that. But again, probably where you're going to get your most impact from improving vertical jump is improving lower body strength. And another probably little aspect after you sort of, when you think about it, is stability. So you really need to be stable. If I go to jump and I've got no hip stability, I'm going to be leaking a lot of energy through my hips, and it's not all being applied through the ground, and that force is not going down to make me go up. So lots of little ankle stability, hip stability, the ability to land safely and absorb force is also important when you're looking to improve vertical jump, because if you're jumping higher, you want to make sure you're landing well. So landing mechanics become important. There's a lot of different aspects you can look to build into the warm-up in these plyometric or power-based sessions or sections of workouts to help not only improve vertical jump, but improve stability, landing mechanics, athletic movement, all sorts of stuff. So it's a really interesting scope to look into. But yeah, you want to make sure, I guess, your client's getting that foundational strength in first before having this as a bit more of a focus. But it's definitely a cool little topic and a good thing to explore, and some fun things to potentially play around with in your own training, to see how it feels, see what the exercises are like, build that coordination. So if you do have to train it or teach it, you've got an idea of how it feels, and pulling up from it as well. Because these plyometric sessions and explosive exercises, if we're doing box jumps or whatever, even we're getting landings in, and they're sort of high impact exercises, they do create fatigue. So recovery between sessions is really important, and making sure to allow that, so we're not sort of increasing our risk of injury by doing too much and overtraining with some of this stuff. But really good topic. So I hope you got a little bit out of that, Lucy. If anybody else has got any questions on this, or something comes to mind, please send an email to tom@afa.com.au. Happy to answer any questions you've got. Do follow up podcasts. If you've got any other topics or questions you'd like me to cover, please reach out, send me an email, and I'm always happy to help. Other than that, guys, have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you all soon.